Hello makers and welcome back to Spectivastudios. It's really great to have you here. Now as we're entering the end of the year, I thought it'd be really nice to have an easy victory in the form of an easy to create abstract that really looks very cool when it's done. And by the way, we're gonna make this. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but it's gonna look exactly like that when we're done. And what I want to be able to do is walk you through the steps. And again, this is not hard and it doesn't take a lot of time, but it does come up with some very interesting results. And to start things off, I'm just working with a piece of heavy-duty watercolor paper. This is 18 inches by 24 inches. And I've laid it out on my craft table with some newspaper underneath it because I want to basically overpaint the paper, which means I'm going to be going off the edges and I don't want to paint my craft table. But we're going to be working with basic black today, and I'm just going to be using some of the apple barrel black that I have here. But I'm also going to thin it out a little bit since we don't need it to be quite this thick. So to start with, I'll just move my paper over the side for a quick moment. I'm going to just grab a ramekin here, and let's drop a little bit of our paint in here. And again, we don't have to go crazy with this. That's a pretty good amount right there. I don't know, 1/8 of a cup, something like that, however we're breaking it down. And then what I'm going to do, like I said, I want to water it down a little bit, make it thinner, because it's a pretty thick paint to begin with. So I'm going to put about a couple tablespoons of water in there at least. I'm going to stir it up. I'm just going to use a small brush just for the purposes of getting this to be a little bit thinner than it currently is. There we go. And get that nice and mixed. It's okay if it's a little globby in places, but we're going to try to thin it out as much as we can consistently. And then it's really just a matter of, I want to take a large house painting brush. So quite literally, I have a 4-inch brush here that I'm going to be using. Again, you don't have to use this. You could use something a little bit smaller. But the goal here is to take the black paint and to do whatever we can to really cover this surface. Now, not totally. I want to have white spaces since this is a study in black and white at the end of the day. I really do want to be able to have some things where we have some white, and I'll show you why this is important. Now, what I could do is dip my brush, or I could just pour a little bit of paint on my paper and start the process of spreading it out like this. And again, part of what I'm focusing on is kind of the overpainting where I'm coming off the edges. And again, maybe just hit it with a little bit more like this. And again, if you want a darker color, you can do that. I'm lightening mine up a little bit because I kind of like the idea of these gradients that are showing up here. I think it's going to enhance the final painting a fair amount. Let's go back in here. Let's go off the edge here and I'll come across like that. And again, the goal here is to just really get some interesting lines. And I'm going to want to be able to create, again, a relationship between the black and the white on this paper. So I want more black than white at the end of the day. Kind of do that. We'll bring it in like this. And I think I want to do one more kind of path from top to bottom up here. Hopefully you can see that. And I'll bring it down into this white area in here. Let's just do that. And maybe we need a little bit more over here. Yeah, we're going to cover up this area. And down here. Start at the corner, and we'll just do a swirl down there. Again, I might just pick up some of the edges here, and get a little bit darker paint at the bottom. Actually, it looks pretty good with the darker paint, so I'm going to do that. All right, and again, I want to have something where I have a fair amount of white still showing here. I don't want it to be totally covered up. And I, of course, have a fair amount of black in here as well. The next thing I want to do is let this piece dry, because after it dries, we're then going to cut it up into smaller pieces, and then we're going to rearrange what our artwork is going to look like. So hold on, I'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back. Now, just like that, our painted piece has had an opportunity to dry. Well, maybe took a few minutes. But here it is right here. And what I want to do now is I want to cut this into smaller pieces. Now, this is an 18 by 24 inch piece of paper, which is very convenient because what I want to use is one of my favorite tools, which is this 6-inch quilting ruler. Now, this means that if I were to lay this quilting ruler across the piece here and run down its outside here, I would have an exactly 6-inch wide piece. And I think that's going to work for what I want to be able to do. Now, Again, your choices are going to vary. I'm going to show you a few variations on a theme as we go through here. But for now, let me get these chunked down. I'm going to cut them, of course, into strips, and then I'm going to cut them into 6-inch pieces. So we're going to end up with a series of 6 by 6-inch blocks when all is said and done. Now, I'll just share one of the things that you can do, especially if you have uniform pieces like these, is you can do what we refer to as stack and whack, which is really you just stack them all up, and then when you cut them, you can cut 4 at a time. It just makes it a lot faster and a lot easier. So get those squared up. I'm going to come in here again, get my ruler, line up on this side, and now it's just cutting over here. All right, there you go. We now have 12 roughly uniform 6 by 6 inch squares. Now, it doesn't have to be super exact. We're going to have a little bit of wiggle room. But one of the things to point out is now each one has a different ratio of black and white, and this is really going to become helpful when we want to come in here and reassemble these. So to begin with, I need another piece of paper to build upon. And once again, I'm working with a piece of 18-inch by 24-inch heavy-duty watercolor paper. And by the way, I'll put all the links in the description below for all the materials we're using for this. And now it's really just a matter of kind of laying things out based upon what we think will work. I'm going to just take a random piece, stick it up here in the corner. And again, I might just sort these things a little bit differently. What happens if I put that like that and that like that? It's almost like a puzzle we're going to kind of figure out as we go along. And so by coming in here, maybe put those white to white, we're going to create some interesting variations. We'll see how we do here. Here we are. Now again, there's no right way to do this. What I would do is I would look for a way to kind of maybe group things together. Like if we had white going against white, I think that creates some interesting patches for us. That makes it a little bit, just a little bit more interesting to kind of draw the eye to certain parts of our artwork. But there is no absolute right way to do any of this. And again, we're kind of working with just this idea of, what happens if we take an original, cut it up and reassemble it, what kind of effect do we get? And again, maybe the original itself was perfect the way it was, but again, this is really an exercise in being able to deal with the different parts and how they may interact with one another. Now, once we've decided on something, and by the way, one of the things that you can also do with these pieces, if I even wanted to make them smaller, right? I have these 6-inch by 6-inch. If I wanted to make them smaller into 3-inch by 3-inch, I'd have 4 pieces that come out of this. I could assemble that. So again, it's really going to depend upon what I want the outcome to be, how big my piece of paper is. I could come into each one of these and make them smaller, make them 4-inch by 4-inch, and then have a nice white margin that I work with around my piece. What we're going to do is just a relatively simple approach. I'm going to grab a glue stick. And now it's really just a matter of starting to take these pieces and put them down where I think they should go. I'm going to actually move, I'm going to move this one over here. I'm going to put this black in the center. Yeah, we'll do that. Do like that. All right. And I may think about it as I go along. I'm going to start up here in my upper left-hand corner. Let me just kind of slide everybody else away, and once again, I just need to get some glue. Normally, well, I have a piece of newspaper here. Maybe I'll use that. I just want to have a gluing sheet so I don't get glue on my actual artwork here. So let's get some glue on the back of this guy, and you want to go all the way up to the edges if you can. Share what that looks like. And I'm going to do a pretty thorough job here. This may eat a few glue sticks if we do it right. One of the things I want to be able to do, of course, is make sure that this thing firmly adheres to the other piece of paper. So I'm going to work pretty quickly, so I still have some dampness on the glue. And then it's just a matter of coming in here. I'm going to line up with my corners, my edges on this side here, and pretty good to go. Now, one of the tools I've talked about that's really one of my go-to tools whenever I'm doing any kind of gluing is called a brayer. And a brayer is used traditionally for moving paint and ink from a pad onto a printing surface. But I find because it's this nice roller, it's a fantastic tool to actually push your glued pieces down on other glued pieces. If we want to get those edges nice and tight, this is a fantastic, fantastic way to do that. So there we are. All right. And that's the process. I'm going to continue to go through here. I'll do it fast forward. You don't need to watch me and the joys of gluing paper. Trust me on that. But again, the concept is really what we're going after here. So what you end up with is what you end up with. Let's see how this goes. All right, and there we have it. So again, it's a bit of an exploration as you're coming in here. And one of the things I recommend doing is take your brayer and go back on some of the pieces you've already smoothed down. Sometimes they have the tendency to pop up a little bit, and they're going to need a little more encouragement to lay down and stay put, which is pretty much what we want to be able to do here. Now, again, with a piece like this is really just kind of an experiment in how we can take these different pieces and swap them around. You can play around with other materials, you can play around with other colors, you can play around with other sizes. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. And my encouragement is just go and play around. What happens if you take something, paint on it abstractly, cut it up and rearrange it? Do you get something that's the sum of its parts, something that's more interesting than where you started? And again, I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that this turned out okay. It's really what I had envisioned. And again, if I stuck this on a wall and said, there's a piece of artwork, who's going to say, no, it isn't, right? So we've created something pretty easily, and it doesn't take a lot of time to get there. So that's what I wanted to be able to share with you today. Again, I hope you enjoy what we've done here today, and if this is the kind of thing that grabs your interest, we make abstract art and talk about abstract art and talk about abstract art tools and methodologies every single week. I would love to be able to have you join our conversation. We have a pretty good growing community here, and it's good to have you part of it. Just hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll let you know whenever we drop a new video, which is Friday mornings. And then we'll take it from there. Anyway, I hope you had fun. I had fun. I'm Spider. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you next time.